3 games down for Ohio State, 3 wins in the bank for the Buckeyes, and 3 things on a Thursday. Welcome to The Beat. It is the Austin Birm Show. He is Birm. I am Austin. And the non-conference, the pre-con non-con Birm is over. We've established that, dating back to the win over Ohio on Saturday night. But you know what we have to do when you get through a stretch of the schedule that is so neatly separated from the rest?
No, I don't know.
You have to give out awards.
Oh, awards. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is like the pre-con, non-con award season.
That's right. And
neat.
There will be 3 topics. They're of my choosing. They're pretty obvious. They're pretty standard. I bet you'll be able to pick it up as we go. And I would like to begin by wondering, thing number 1, who you believe the offensive MVP of the pre-con, non-con was.
I mean, there's obvious choices, of course.
You have to make one.
Well, I think it's Carnell Tate to this point. Although, I mean, again, there's obviously the easy discussion with Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith putting up big numbers. But touchdown every week for Carnell. He's showing that he's not just the possession guy that maybe people would like to box him into being. He's getting downfield, making big plays. He's averaging 17 yards a catch, 10 catches over 3 games, 170 yards. I like a lot about what he's doing. But I don't know. It's so hard to pick a receiver because you could always replace him with someone else on this team, you feel like. So maybe it has to be Julian Sayin because I don't think that his statistical output could have been replicated by anybody else over the first 3 weeks. But then you ask yourself, do stats matter the most? Is that what really counts? Is it impact? Is it leadership? Because I don't think I've seen a single thing in 3 games that would indicate that the left side of the offensive line led by Austin Birm has done anything but perfect. So who's your pick? And then I'll decide.
I did not think that asking you for an offensive MVP would put you into a blender just to start the show.
Because I don't know. Look, number one, the second game of the season doesn't really count for anything. But you also can't ignore the fact that Julian Sayin was 18 and 19 in that game and the big numbers he put up in a half. Okay, it's got to be Julian Sayin. Okay, because he's been so much better than I expected him to be through 3 games, but also because the long-term success and health of the program relies so heavily on what he does this season, proving Ryan Day right again at quarterback, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. It's Julian Sayin, right? It's got to be Julian Sayin.
Yes, it does have to be Julian Sayin. I was hoping you would get there. Now, You're right. You can entertain other options. And if we had said, what's the most important play of the pre-con, non-con, Carnell Tate's touchdown catch when that ball was, floating up there, maybe slightly underthrown, although Ryan Day has said that's the way they like it, put air under it and let the receiver make a play and go back and adjust to the football. Julian Sayin did that. The touchdown against Texas is the most important play of the first 3 games for Ohio State. So Carnell Tate, with the consistency that he's produced, first downs and touchdowns, and every catch being sensational, I think it's a legitimate discussion point. Jeremiah Smith is Jeremiah Smith. That's unchanged. So he is also incredibly valuable for where this Buckeyes offense is going to go. But the answer does have to be Julian Sayin because, and I think it was fascinating to listen to Ryan Day talk about training camp in week 1 and making assumptions about what the quarterback or what any position is going to do, and then validating that out. And Brian Hartline saying, I don't want to make assumptions, and I'm never going to do that. I know that they weren't answering the exact same question, but both of them, if you're giving them truth serum, and with Ryan Day, I don't think that's even necessary because he made that pretty clear coming out of the Texas game, would acknowledge that, yes, Julian Sayin had the biggest upside, most talented arm, the chance to elevate the passing attack over the course of the season. The choice for them in the middle of August, I don't know that it became all that complicated, despite Lincoln Kienholz making that a more competitive competition. That sounds repetitive than many expected it to be or believed that it was. But even still, that Julian Sayin's performance through 3 games has I think, vastly exceeded what they thought they could do with him. And that changes everything, as you said, for what this team can become down the road.
Yeah, and it's not really that. I don't think that Ryan Day entered the final 2 weeks of training camp thinking, well, we made our decision, we made our bed, let's lay in it type of thing. Like, yeah, I think that they were encouraged by what they saw over the last couple of weeks of Julian Sayin in August, which I think probably started to turn the wheels a little bit about what they might expect from him, what those assumptions might be. But I also feel pretty confident that, like, at the end of spring, there were discussions in Columbus about should they go get a different quarterback? Should they look into bringing somebody else in the transfer portal? And that was happening at the end of spring. And I'm not talking about Eli Brickholder or Brickhandler.
Brickhandler, come on, put some respect on his name.
I am not trying to be funny when I keep saying his name incorrect. But I think that similar to the discussion we had a few months ago at defensive tackle, where it's like, hey, man, we're going to trust the guy we have here. Let's just see if he can get it done. This is the guy we brought. This guy we recruited. This is the guy we're developing. I feel like it is difficult to plaster developed now all over your campus and all over your facilities if you're not willing to at least give that some real credence. Ryan Day's been validated, and the offense is, I think, starting to figure out its identity, and it's going to take off a little bit over these next couple of weeks, I feel like. So the confidence is there for Julian Sayin. He has gained the trust of his teammates. He's gained the trust of his coaches. And now you start to see him creeping up the Heisman odds and all that stuff. So big stretch coming up, because we'll see how different life is when you're on the road and in a noisy place like Washington's going to be. But if Julian Sayin comes out of that game looking the way that he's looked after the first three, then I think you really start to have the discussion about not just him as a potential Heisman front runner, but just about Ohio State and the idea that this team is not just a conversational point when it comes to talking about repeating, but actually then like a very, very real threat to do it.
Well, I mean, they're number one in the country, and they already have a win over a team that they beat in the semifinals a year ago. I don't know how much more legitimate that conversation could be. Now, it is also correct, as you pointed out, like Julian Sayin has to go on the road for the first time in 9 days at Washington. It is going to be loud, hostile, difficult to play there. Now, I don't think that the Washington defensive talent is enough to pose a significant challenge for Julian Sayin or Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate, but we'll find out. When you say, though, this offensive identity, it felt like when we left the Woody on Tuesday, you were coming around on this idea that there just wouldn't be a permanent identity for this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's more of a conversation about that than I initially believed there would be. But ultimately, as we've said in the last couple of weeks, this offense is going to go where Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate take them, I think, because that is still where the top tier talent is. That's still where you have the biggest advantage over your opponents every single week. And that's still where Ryan Day and Brian Hartline are born. That's who they are. They want to push the ball down the field. You saw Ryan Day's face light up when talking about taking shots, and he wasn't talking about Goldschlager on Tuesday. Like, he's talking about, hey, he wants to be aggressive. He wants to be a home run hitter type of offense. And that's what Ohio State has at wide receiver more than anybody in the country. So ultimately, I think when the rubber meets the road, or as Adam the King would say, at the end of the day, this team is going to go as far as Julian Sayin's arm takes it. But I've seen a willingness to say, screw it, let's run the ball in this situation. Let's just do what works best in this any given game. But most games, I still think that's going to be relying on Julian Sayin's arm and the Ohio State receivers to win. So I don't think it changes the overall identity of the program under Ryan Day, but I do think there's a willingness to check the egos at the door a little bit and just play into the strength of any given game.
Did you know that it's made with flecks of real gold?
Goldschlager? I did know that. I did. I had it a few times back in the old days.
That's what
back
makes
in the high school days. So gross.
No, it's so delicious. It's the best. If you mix it with some Red Bull, then you've got a delightful concoction.
What's that called?
I called it a Golden Bull.
Golden Bull.
Yeah. I don't know of anyone else who's ever actually mixed those two things other than me, but if you have, let us know at the Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com, and I'll include that. Whatever question you have, if you said that you've had a golden bull in your life, we'll take that on the mailbag, which is what we're going to be doing on Freaky Friday from Tansky Power Sports. So make sure that you get those mailbag questions in. Birm, if you had to guess what thing number 2 was going to be, what do you think it's going to be?
Defensive MVP is what I would guess.
All right.
And again, this is one of those conversations where the question is much different based on like how you might feel viscerally over the first couple weeks from what we've seen versus what we know has to be true, which is that Caleb Downs stirs the drink. Caleb Downs is the guy. He is the engine in the locomotive of this defense. But
the locomotion, I think, is a dance.
But that's what I've heard. But Arvell Reese is the guy who like you watch and you're like, whoa, look at that. Look at that. Look at that guy. But Caleb is the guy that makes it go. And so I think it's probably Caleb because the defense can't be what it is without him. But I'm going to go Arvell Reese because I think he's changed the dynamic of the entire defense in a way that we already knew Caleb provided that element. And then you add what Arvell is giving. And I don't think that you can get it without him.
Yeah, maybe it's outlandish to suggest this, but I think it's possible that James Laurinaitis and Matt Patricia could get close to that with some combination of Peyton Pierce and maybe even Riley Pettijohn. Again, you said we have to remove Grambling in some respects from the conversation, but I really don't want to when it comes to what Riley Pettijohn could do right away. So I feel like there's enough depth and talent and athleticism at linebacker that maybe the MVP conversation would be negated when it came to Arvell Reese. Although, he's put himself squarely in consideration at the September Buckeyes Award winner. He's going to be a semifinalist. He's probably going to be a finalist based on the bizarre timeline for voting for college football awards. So it seems weird I'm not trying to diminish anything he's accomplished, but
sounds like you're trying to diminish everything he's accomplished.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I swear.
Meanwhile, are you going to pick Jalen McClain?
No, I'm going to pick Caleb Downs because I think that I did. And again, this is not to pick on rotation or question the depth or I definitely defer fully to Matt Patricia, Tim Walton, and Matt Guerreri for the way that they are deploying that secondary. I thought, and I said throughout the offseason, everyone who listens to the beat knows that I was on the record. I predicted, I thought Malik Hartford would start against Texas, and he's not played much of a role at all for Ohio State. So if that's the case, and they're not even working him in a true, workload timeshare with Jalen McClain, then obviously the confidence in Caleb Downs is on a different level from everybody else. But if there's not a third or fourth safety that Ohio State could put into the game that they feel like could come reasonably close to matching what Caleb Downs could do, and maybe that's not even a realistic proposition for anyone to do, I think he is so, not just because of the variety of roles that he plays, the trust that Matt Patricia has in him, seeing him start on the, make a play at the defensive line, drop into coverage and get an interception, all the things we saw him do a year ago, not just all that, but I think if you're comparing that to what else is on this roster, the depth at safety doesn't appear coming out of the pre-con, non-con to be what I thought it was, which makes Caleb even more valuable.
Yeah, and some of that is just the matter of comparison, right? I mean, if you're looking at it and you think to yourself, who can we put out there that's close to Caleb? I mean, he's the best defensive player in college football. So to wonder, hey, do we have a fourth guy who can contribute on anywhere near that level? I think is wishful thinking. That's why I think someone like Jalen McClain is interesting in this conversation, because we know what Caleb Downs is. And so when you have that known commodity, it's easy to it's like in recruiting, when an Ohio kid commits, you automatically kind of overlook him because you're like, well, that's what we expected. But this is what you expect out of Caleb Downs, but it doesn't change the fact of how valuable it is. It doesn't change how important it is. It doesn't change how much it provides Ohio State with flexibility and versatility to do whatever else they want on defense. And it doesn't change the fact that you cannot replace him a year from now. So I can understand the argument of why he's like the default position, and sometimes the default position is just correct because he's the best defensive player in the country and maybe the best pure football player in college football. And I don't know that it's really an arguable point, to be honest. I mean, Jeremiah Smith is obviously a freak and the best receiver in the game and most dynamic offensive weapon, but like, I don't think anybody is going to compare the two and say, well, if you just had to go like, who's the best football player? It's probably going to be Caleb Downs by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah, I can sense it now. It's like Austin and Birm are doing a Three Thoughts Thursday, and they're talking about Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs and Julian Sayin. They're really covering a lot of new ground.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm trying not to just take the low-hanging fruit, but you can't ignore the fruit when it's as tasty as Caleb Downs is to this defense. You know, like he makes this. He is everything the defense is able to do. It's because of Caleb Downs, and so like you can't ignore that. But at the same time, I don't want to just take the easy shot because that people expect more, right? Do they expect more?
I like shots.
Shots. Ryan Day loves shots. No one loves shots more than Ryan Day.
That is one of my favorite all-time Ryan Day press conference quotes. Completely out of context, but still delightful.
Yeah, that one definitely needs to be clipped and turned into a meme.
Yeah, get on that. All right. So this one is not low-hanging fruit, and you should be able to take a wider variety of options into consideration, Birm, and that is who you believe to be the most improved player at Ohio State through 3 games.
It's an interesting question. From when?
I thought you might say that. I mean, that's up to you. I don't think you have to say from game 1 to game 3, but maybe from the end of last season to now.
Well, again, Carson Hinsman doesn't really. It's not a. I don't know that the improvement is from the end of last season to now, but from the beginning of last season and his value, his impact, what he's doing at center. He's definitely got to be in that conversation. But boy, that is a tough. Okay.
You're in a blender today, man. What's going on?
Most improved. Well, because there's so many guys that there's guys that maybe people didn't expect to be as valuable, like Caden Curry, for example. I think the national narrative or even the Ohio State fan narrative around Caden Curry is that he's just a role player and he's a niche guy. Like Caden Curry's of almost irreplaceable on this defense right now. Davis and Igbinosun from last year to this year, aside from the penalty that he had against Ohio, which was not a matter of technique, but just him being super lazy on that one play. Like, he hasn't been called for a penalty in 3 games other than that holding penalty, which was just him getting, as I said, just being lazy. Caden McDonald, like, did anybody expect him to be as good as he is outside of like immediate people in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center or people who talk to people in the WAC every day? Like, probably not. I'm saying this question can be asked and answered in a number of ways. You know who I think has been the most improved player?
That was the question.
It's a conversation about Jelani Thurman and Bennett Christian, and what they have. They're adding something different because they've changed the tight end conversation. Because we thought about Max Clare, Will Kazmarek all offseason. Oh, these are the 2. And then you're like, well, but how much are these other guys going to play? And here they are both playing a ton. This question is hard because, again, what's the context of improved? That's what really matters here. Because I think the answer is Lorenzo Styles.
Okay.
And
now you're getting somewhere.
People might mock me for that because of the one play he gave up last weekend. But I thought in the Texas game, it was like the biggest surprise about the defense was that it was Lorenzo Styles who was the chess piece that allowed Caleb Downs to do other things. So that was unexpected to me. This is year 3 in the program for Lorenzo. It's year 3 as a defensive back. I think that he's been better than I would have anticipated, because I don't consider the completion he gave up against Ohio to be a problem at all. And I understand what he was doing on the series of missed tackles on that same play. So I'm not going to hold too much of that against him, because I realized he was just trying to make a play in a game against the inferior team that he thought, hey, I can take a shot here, I could take a chance, and it didn't hit. But Lorenzo Styles is like a legitimately important piece of this defense. And you heard Matt Patricia, when people tried on Tuesday to talk about other players, him coming back around to Lorenzo Styles and saying, well, hey, don't forget that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, partner. And
what's part of I didn't say anything for like 6 minutes there before I got to the part. That was a lot of filibustering. I was really trying to really process this question, because context matters.
I wanted you to work through it in real time and give people a glimpse into your thought process. And I thought that was important to just let that happen. And, I think getting to Lorenzo is absolutely a fine place to land. And yes, he missed a play, and one that was costly, at least in real time, against Ohio, not in the grand picture, not in the outcome. And then he dealt with the injury, and we moved on to, well, this is what the backup nickel situation looks like. Is that what they're going to lean on moving forward? Should they do that? I mean, Lorenzo Styles did not come off the field against Texas. That was not on accident, and there was not anything wrong with the way he was playing whatsoever in that game. So I know that he became something of a, easy target in the offseason, and it was suggested that maybe you and me were overselling what he could become. And if you want to jump off of the bandwagon, or you were already on the anti-Lorenzo train before Saturday, I mean, that's fine. Everyone can have their own opinions, but I know that inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, Lorenzo is incredibly well thought of, and the grades outside of one play, as you mentioned, have been off the charts for him. So I think Lorenzo is a great pick for that, but so is Austin Sehraveld, because I think I'm zooming out for a longer picture here. But even if you looked at the end of last year and his contributions to the playoff push, at no point did we say, you know what, this guy is going to be an anchor left tackle. He's going to be close to flawless in protection. He's going to open up rushing lanes on that left side of the line. He's going to be an Iron Buckeye. He's going to be a captain. I mean, and he's going to do it all at the most important position on the offensive line, in front of not a true freshman, a first-time starting quarterback in Julian Sayin. Where would this team be without Austin Sehraveld? I'm not sure that that's a conversation that Ohio State really wants to entertain. And as Ryan Day did on Tuesday, you knock on the wood, knock on the desk, knock on the podium. Austin Sehraveld has also become, I think, indispensable for this team. And kudos to Phillip Daniels for a narrower window. What we saw from him in spring camp didn't suggest that he would be as solid as he's been at right tackle. You could go either way with either tackle for Ohio State. Both of those guys have been invaluable, but Austin Sehraveld, I think, is one of the most important parts of this entire team.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. I mean, I go to Lorenzo Styles because I think, for me, from the defensive standpoint, from the, like, what did we expect heading into the Texas game? And the fact that he was not only, as you said, not taken off the field in that game, but so integral in allowing the defense to move other pieces around. That was just like on the list of things we expected to happen after like spring ball. That's probably like right at the top of like the holy moly, that's a surprise list.
Right.
Austin Sehraveld, once we saw what he was in spring and the Iron Buckeye stuff and all that, and then once Ryan Day, like the second day of practice and training camps as well, he's been working at left tackle almost exclusively. Then it's like, I mean, then I think the idea at that point was like the rocket ship is taking off for us in Sehraveld, and we all may as well hang on. Now, that's not to say he has not been better than expected in that spot, considering he's never played it before, because I think that's a real conversation. But I'm gonna stick with my guns. Took me a long time to get there to Lorenzo, but I can't be moved off of it now. It's Lorenzo Styles, the most improved player, and it's not even a conversation at that point. Austin Sehraveld has been great. He's been great. As I said when I was talking about offensive MVP, I think his name could be in there because I think he might be, the team's MVP based on what he means to everyone. But I'm just trying to see if we can go an entire episode without like glazing Jeremiah Smith, So I think that's an important thing we're doing here. We're growing, we're learning. There are other guys who are making an impact on this team, and it's not always the guys we expect.
Well, then we did it. It was not a JJ Glaze show on a Three Things Thursday on the Beat. A lot of other.
I have a thing. Let's talk about punt returns.
No,
just kidding. I just felt like maybe we should, give people a sense of doom and gloom for the off week, just something to work on.
If they want to ask us about it for the Freaky Friday mailbag, feel free. That is the Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com. Get those questions in, because full disclosure, that will be recorded on Thursday for Friday. So the earlier the better to get those in. That is the Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com. You can share your picks for MVP, offensive, defensive, most improved player. We'd be happy to hear from you, and we can get those questions and comments up as well as we dive into that one. And we'll wrap up Improvement Week with that Freaky Friday. This, though, as always, a Three Things Thursday. Birm wanted to make it a fourth thing, but we're not doing that. No, not on special teams.
We have to we have to stick to our guns here, and this is Three Things Thursday, not Four Thoughts Thursday. I get it. I'm sorry. I messed up. I just really wanted to talk about punt returns.
Yeah, I know. You're obsessed with it, and it's gross, okay? Yeah. Get over it. Thanks for joining us.
I want to make clear one thing, if I can. Okay. If you want your question to be on the Friday edition of the Beat, the mailbag, you need to get that in by about like noonish on Thursday, because we're going to be recording Friday morning show, 1:30 in the afternoon or so, right?
That is correct. We'll be hanging out there at Tansky Power Sports. Big event coming this weekend. We'll tell you more about that on Freaky Friday on the Beat. Thanks for joining us for this Thursday edition of the Austin and Birm Show. He is Birm. I am Austin. We will talk to you tomorrow.